Be honest. I say global warming and you say, this is Wretched Radio. We've all got an opinion about the subject of environmentalism, the religion of environmentalism, global warming. You perhaps follow conservative talk shows. You read the blogs that are conservative, and you have heard it's a complete scam. We're not blowing a hole in the ozone. We can have as many cows as we want to eat, Bill Gates. And therefore, that's your position. Now, while I'd agree with that position personally, the question is, how do we make that case biblically? That's what matters. Not what the conservative talk show pundits say, but what does the Bible say? And so it is, Wretched Worldview. Dr. Owen Strachan and I, we explore 22 issues biblically, step by step. Lose your pre-understandings. What are the explicit verses? What are the implicit verses? Then we get into the subject of how does the gospel inform me on my understanding of the issue of global warming?
That's the biblical material that we can pull together explicitly and implicitly on this matter. What does the gospel say about these things? First, the gospel causes us to treasure everything God has given us, including our world. So we are called, definitely, to be stewards. So yes, when you see somebody littering, you actually, I think, are acting out gospel faith and glorifying God when you pick up that Reese's peanut butter cup wrapper. Better would be dark chocolate peanut butter cups. But that's a digression. That doesn't relate to the gospel directly. Secondly, the gospel opens our eyes to the dominion mandate. We referenced this earlier. Adam and Eve are to steward the earth, not trash it. So they're put here to steward the earth, to take dominion of it. Now that does mean that they get their hands dirty from Genesis 1 onwards. They're called to see themselves as the vice regents, the under kings of the earth, and that matters. That means that we're not scared then about, I don't know, cultivating a plot of land and having a home and cutting down trees or bushes if we need to do these sorts of things and planting a garden. These are all good things that flow out of Christian faith. We see ourselves as stewards, even in a kind of Adamic way, realized in Christ. Second Adam. Third, the gospel makes us people of truth who care hugely about actual science, not just science-ness, science-y. Is that a term?
It is now.
Being science-y. Data and proof of major claims like global warming. Look, this is a hard one to sift on this particular lesson. All the cascading amounts of information that come to us about global warming. Is it happening? Is it not happening? What we need to know is that the gospel makes us people of truth, not people of stereotypes, not people of talking points. We need to do a good job at trying to evaluate honest data honestly. It does seem, let me just dive in here for a quick second, that the earth is warming in the last 80 to 100 years. But there's major debate over whether that is catastrophic warming or whether we're in a cyclical period of warming. There's a pretty strong minority position of scientists today who say that, yes, the earth is in a season of warming, but that shouldn't alarm us, that shouldn't cause us to feel terrible about the way we're living, these sorts of things. And so we've got a lot to think through. The gospel makes us people who care profoundly about truth. What is the historic...
I Googled something.
Oh, no.
There's a doctor, Michael Schellenberger, who was a global warming activist for 3 decades. He was going to testify before Congress, which meant he had to tell the truth or you can go to jail. And now he's written a book saying, sorry, I was lying. And so are a lot of the global warming experts. And he admitted why he did it, for fear of, and this is a quote from here, losing funding and friends. So global warming activists, are they to always be believed? We're to be healthy skeptics of global science.
Yeah, that's helpful. When somebody says, I Googled something, it makes me very nervous, but that was good.
It's right here. It's right on my phone.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. People who weren't able to Google things were most of Christians in most of history, and yet they had a perspective on global stewardship such that they emphasize that humanity does care for the earth, and we should. We should, from the Bible verses we saw, care for the earth. That's a profound concern of Christians in Christian history. There's also a very strong emphasis you find in the church's witness over the centuries of those who understand that, look, this earth is going to be destroyed. There's been a real fall, and Jesus is really going to judge the earth. Please just note that in a lot of thinking about climate change and global warming, we're the ones, yes, who are the problem, but we're also the ones who make everything right. And that is very distinct from the way the church, drafting off of the Bible, has historically thought. Thirdly, we're going to understand that in historic Christianity, in more recent years, there's a trend toward being green. Being green as an evangelical, there's a lot we could say about this. We want to just make sure, as believers, that our positions aren't trendy. We're not taking what we take. We're not standing for what we stand because it's a trend, because it's culturally hot. Maybe our culture makes us think about things, think about the implications of being green. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to hold what we hold for stronger reasons than trends. Okay, so let's think now about how global warming impacts our personal testimony. First, is being anti-global warming as an advocate seen as a new religion, one that I'm outside of? Well, here's the deal. As a Christian, you and I, by virtue of being a kind of healthy skeptic, like we talked about earlier, as Todd said, we may be seen as outside of this kind of new religion, this new way of thinking. And that's a serious issue for us. That may set us apart from people. That may actually give us an opportunity to be a Christian witness. That relates to number two. Number two, will my deeply held position on the matter end up turning people away from my witness for Christ? There's a real challenge that we face when we're dealing with non-gospel issues, such that we could hold them so strongly, it's possible that we would end up turning people away from the gospel. This isn't an easy one to handle.
If I might jump in for a moment, perhaps this will be helpful. We need to ask ourselves the question when we discuss any issue, any public subject, what are people hearing? Not because we change the truth, not because we compromise the truth, but I'm mindful I've got a bigger agenda here. What does it profit a man if he ditches his global warming beliefs but ends up in a lake of fire? So I have a higher agenda. So I ask myself the question, when I talk about this subject, what are they perceiving? What are they hearing? I want to be gentle as a dove, but wise as a serpent. So when we talk about global warming, like I hear so often done on conservative talk shows, oh, the global warming people are stupid. It's junk science. Well, it may be true. I need to ask myself the question, what am I trying to accomplish with this conversation? And the answer shouldn't be to merely win a global warming debate, but to win them to the Lord. Back to Owen Strachan.
But it's something we have to think through. How do I advocate for what is true? How do I show a healthy skepticism to these major claims of global warming, especially from a theological vantage point, while also always trying to lead people to Christ as much as the Spirit would allow? Let's head into some common objections and consider what we're going to hear in regards to this case and how we, as Christians, can give good answers to it. The first objection we hear is that the earth is getting hotter. Let's give this one a maybe. In the last 80 to 100 years, it is pretty clear that the data has the earth getting hot.
Not long enough. You need more time to determine a pattern. 80 years ain't long enough. What are you, a liberal?
That's a fair point, actually. That's a fair point. I like the razzing and the buzzer. Very effective. It's true, your point, in other words, that the earth, I think, is hotter in this span, but we don't have data from before that time. So it's hard to prove anything conclusively. In other words, we should give this one a big fat possibly, okay? Secondly, we hear I'm pro-science, and all serious scientists believe in global warming. Here again, a maybe. It's a good thing to be pro-science. Every Christian should be pro-science, and yet the scientific consensus is very much split about global warming, about catastrophic climate change. So Christians should be very skeptical about the argument that being pro-science means being pro-global warming in the sense that you believe it is happening and it is catastrophically happening.
If and I might interrupt yet again, which seems to be my knack. Keeping in mind my testimony, what is my agenda? Let's just use this objection. that, hey, the majority of scientists, they just say this is settled science. It's a done deal. Zip it, Christian. When we just go, no. I've got a list, and I'm going to send it to you and show you because there's a lot of them. Okay, just keeping in mind, I don't want this to be a battle over whose list is longer. I could instead say, you know what, friend, that's interesting. And I know that gets talked about a fair amount, but having done a little research, it appears that there are a pretty large number of scientists that actually work in the fields that are in view here that disagree. Would you be interested in seeing that list and maybe just being aware that perhaps there's actually a split in the scientific community? I don't think that's watering it down. I think it's trying to share information while trying to share something greater. Wretched Worldview, sorry we didn't get to the end. I kept interrupting. You'll have to hear the whole shebang when you get it yourself at wretched.org/worldview. Don't forget the study guide. And until tomorrow, go serve your king. I'll be needing to see some identification, young man.
Why?
Because you, my friend, are a lawbreaker.
No, I'm not.
You are, according to this video from Ray Comfort. Production. I need the clips on time.
911, what's your emergency?
We met about
Yeah, he asked me to
this.
become a gospel partner, and he took my credit card.